All right, really quick, welcome to week 2. We are on module 1, lesson 2. This is day 2 of our instructions on the notebook on constitutionalism and going over the quiz. All right. Last time we met, we left off. We were working on the notebook. So go ahead and get your notebook open, module 1, lesson 2. While you do that, I just want to review again that in modules, if you ever miss class or you need to catch up or you just need help reviewing, go to the lesson and recording, which is the very first module, and go to the current week or whatever you're working on. And so it'll show you Tuesday what we did, right? We introed the lesson. We went over the essential question and vocab, okay? Reviewed what was due on Monday, which was last week module. And then for today, we're going to be continuing in the notebook, going over the primary resource, and then I will give you your review sheet for your quiz at the end of the period today. All right. Also, this is where it'll show then for sure what's due on, small group on Friday and then what's due Monday. Because remember, Mondays are our due dates. Okay. So we work on things Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. You have Friday, Monday to finish it, get it in by Monday. All right. And then remember, there's that week late window. And then after that, it closes permanently. Here's Tuesday's playback. So if you missed class yesterday, you need to catch up on anything, go and watch this. And that will help you get through the first part of the notebook. Okay. So the first part of the notebook, because we're going to pick up with question 4 today. All right. So let's go back into modules. And we're going to scroll down. Module 1, lesson 1 was last week. We're in module 1, lesson 2. Okay. If you weren't with us, then you're going to go here to open up your notebook. There's 2 things due this week. Module 1, lesson 2 notebook, which we're working on, and then you have to take the quiz. All right. So you should already have your notebook saved on your Google Drive. If you don't, then go here and open it up. Make a copy. You'll want to go back and watch that video that I posted for doing questions 1 through 4. We're going to review question 4, and then we're going to pick up and we're going to do 5, 6, and 7 today. So we'll do 5, 6, and 7 today. You'll have 8 and 9 that you need to complete independently, but I'm hoping we'll have some time at the end of class for you to work on that. Okay, so I'm hoping that I can get through. And then if there's 15, 20 minutes left, then you can work on those last 2 sections independently. All right. Okay, so go ahead and give me a thumbs up once you have your notebook open, ready to go, and you have Canvas open. Remember, you save these on your Google Drive. Awesome, awesome. Everybody's awesome. So you save it on your Google Drive, create a government folder, right? Save it here, and then make sure that it's shareable. So you go to that right-hand corner, share, and make sure anyone with the link. Oh, no, I don't want to restrict this. Anyone with the link. Okay. All right. So we're going to go back and I'm going to click here. So this is where you got 1 and 2. So the supporting question or the essential question and vocab. And then we did number 3, which was roots of enlightenment. Okay. We looked at the American Revolution. All right. We watched the Declaration of Independence video. Okay. And talking about how the American Revolution started and what was so historic and important about the Declaration of Independence. So where we're going to pick up is I want to go over the checking for understanding. So just really quick, section 4, where we left off, okay, on American Revolution, the question was, what was the primary motivation of the colonists when they declared their independence from Great Britain in 1776? So I'll put this in the chat for you again. So Thomas Jefferson's core argument for independence against England, King George, right, was refusal to stand up for the colonists in Parliament. They wanted direct rolls. They wanted says and taxes. They wanted fair trials. They didn't want to have to house and quarter soldiers, and their natural rights as British citizens and in that parliamentary system were being denied to them, and so they were like, this is a breakup letter. We're done with this. Okay. All right. So give me a thumbs up. You have number 4. You're ready to do the checking for understanding. So if you missed this end of class yesterday, you can quickly put that in there. You can just copy and paste it from the chat. Okay, we're going to go back into Canvas and we are going to do the checking for understanding. Now, does anybody remember why I said these checking for understandings are good? Not just that they review. Why, if you're really smart, are you going to review these? a couple of times. Anybody remember? What about these checking for understandings is a great advantage to you? Anybody remember? Can you unmute or put it in the chat? Yes, very good, Elena. Yes, it's on the quiz. So these questions are pulled from the test bank. So it doesn't mean you'll get every question, but you will get some of these questions. Guarantee you'll get some of these questions, okay? So these questions not only are great just to make sure you're getting the concepts, but a great way to review for the quiz, all right? Great way to review for the quiz. So again, you would be silly to skip these, all right? This is just common sense, right? We want to do well, and seeing the questions ahead of time is a great way to do that. All right. So our first question, what is Thomas Jefferson's core argument for independence in the Declaration of Independence? All right. And that is that the British government does not protect the natural rights of colonists and acted without their consent. So this is where we get that line, no taxation without representation, comes from, you know, as if because they were implementing like the Stamp Act, the Sugar Act, things like that, these taxes that were only for the colonists, not for the other British colonies, and without their consent. Not that they didn't think they were going to pay taxes, just we just want to have a vote in the process. Okay. A key complaint by the colonists against the British government in the Declaration of Independence was it had dissolved their colonial legislative, therefore deprived the colonists of self-government. So they had colonial local legislatives that then would work with the British government. They dissolved that and basically brought soldiers over just to keep order. And people were like, wait a minute, it would be like not having a mayor or not having like a local mayor or a governor. Like within your entities, you need to have different branches or levels of government to keep order, to address immediate issues in your area. Okay, so we're going to click finish. Now, again, you can go back and you can review them. You can retry. So if you didn't do well, you can always redo it if you want. Okay, so those are great. All right, we're going to go to the next section, Articles of Confederation. And again, if you missed any of the earlier questions and things, go back and watch the playback from Tuesday. Okay, that's why I'm not going over it again, because it's in that recording. So if you missed class, or if you need, if I went too fast, you can go back and rewatch that recording, pause it as you're going through. So this section's on Articles of Confederation, first attempt at a constitution. So after the Declaration of Independence, they have to write a constitution, the founding document, all right, and fight the British. So the American Revolution's going on, and they're trying to write this Articles of Confederation. Now, the Articles of Confederation was in place for quite a few years, okay, for quite a few years, but they quickly became to realize why it wasn't going to work. Let's take a look at the questions real quick, and then we'll watch the video. Oops, that's the review sheet. Okay, so the question they're asking you is, how did the Articles' weaknesses lead to a new constitution? And then, do you think the United States could ever effectively govern under a unicameral Congress like the one established in the Articles of Confederation? Explain your position, okay? All right, so let's watch this quick video, and then we will talk about those questions and answer them.
In the U.S., we love our Constitution. But it wasn't always this way. Before the Constitution and government we have today, we had a sort of prototype constitution called the Articles of Confederation, which created a nation of independent states only loosely linked together by a single Congress. The Founding Fathers intentionally designed a nation with a very weak central government. There was no judicial branch, no executive branch, so there was no president, which when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. You know, the colonists had just been through a really bad breakup with the British king, and they're not about to get back together with a government who looked just like their ex, okay? We've all made that mistake before, okay? You go and date a girl like the last girl you dated, you're gonna get hurt, okay? Don't do this to yourself. The Congress, which was just a single chamber with a delegate from every state, did have some power, like the authority to make treaties and alliances, maintain an army, and coin money. But they couldn't levy the taxes to pay for those things. In fact, under the Articles of Confederation, paying federal taxes was voluntary for the states, who of course were like, no thanks, we're good. The US had borrowed money from European investors and nations to pay for the Revolutionary War, but with no power to tax, the United States couldn't pay back any of those debts, creating a huge economic disaster by 1787. With no funds and limited power, the central government couldn't do much to protect peace at home. This became abundantly clear during Shays' Rebellion in 1786, when farmers in Massachusetts violently protested against the state's high taxes. So if the Articles of Confederation weren't working, why didn't they just make changes to it? Well, it was practically impossible. Amendments to the Articles needed unanimous consent, and the delegates from the 13 states had more opinions than a YouTube comment section. By the way, you should comment on this video right now. Say something nice about it. This weak Congress and a broke, ineffective federal government eventually proved to be too much of a burden on the United States. Because when 13 different state governments held all the power, nothing was getting accomplished. The Founding Fathers found this out the hard way. So they went back to the drawing board, drafting a new and improved Constitution, which is still the law of our land today.
Okay, hopefully that helped to kind of break down. You know, the Articles of Confederation wasn't a complete failure. There were some treaties founded under it, you know, kind of laying some basic structure. But the problem that they had with it is it gave no power to the federal government and basically made things optional. So again, if it's optional for a toddler to listen, are they really going to listen? No. The federal government had no authority to make the states fall in line. And then to change it, all 13 states had to agree. Well, think about how divided we are in politics today. Like even getting us to agree on getting a Democrat and a Republican even to agree on where to go to lunch is a hard call, right? I mean, it's impossible. So they had to start over because to have everyone agree was just nothing was going to change because states didn't want to give up their rights. Okay. And particularly having no authority to collect taxes. Let's be honest. If it's optional to pay taxes, who's really going to want to pay taxes? I don't want to. I want to keep my check. Who doesn't want to keep their money? You know, you worked for that. So, I mean, that's human nature. So, it's definitely frustrating for these early founding people trying to figure this out. But it led then to the construction of the Constitution, which we have today that actually works. So let's go in and take a look and we'll do these questions. All right. So first question, how did the Articles' weakness lead to the need for a new Constitution? It created a loose alliance amongst the state with little power in the national government. The individual states had too much power. The Confederation Congress could not tax. It lacked effective enforcement of law and could not regulate commerce. As such, the national government had too little power. Okay, so this is number 5. So basically, it was a parent with no authority. And the kids were running the show. The states were running the show. And it just didn't work. And what, are you going to get all the kids to agree that the parent should have authority in order for the parent to have authority? Like, it's not going to happen. There's going to be a holdout. So this is why they had to just start from scratch, basically. They really did just have to start from scratch. Okay, next, how do we think the United States could have been effectively governed under a unicameral Congress like the one established in the Articles of Confederation? Explain your position. So if you think about the structure of our government, in Congress, there's the House and the Senate. Okay, so there's 2 levels to the legislative branch, and the legislative branch are the ones that make laws. In the Articles of Confederation, there was just one house. Okay, there was just the Senate. There were senators. Every state had a representative. And stuff. So it wasn't based on population. It was just everyone was equal. So when they rewrote the Constitution, they created 2 different houses. House of Representatives, which is based on population. So a state like Nevada, we only have a couple representatives. State like California, they have over 10, a dozen. They have a ton. So depending on, so the higher your population, the more representatives you get. The lower the population, the less representatives. So based on population. The Senate, though, the second house, okay, or the second branch of Congress, is every single state gets 2. So I don't care if you're small like Wyoming, who has the smallest population in the United States per state, or if you're large like New York, California, Florida, or Texas, okay, everybody gets 2. So the question is, could we function under, when it says unicameral, that means one Congress, just one group, okay, established by states? I think we could. So I said, yes, I think we could if there was a way to make it fair. And the only way that you could really do that so that each state had equal representation, which would be to basically have the Senate, that every state gets 1 or 2 representatives. Every state gets the number of representatives. If you do it based on population, then smaller states are going to always have less representative rights, but then they get steamrolled by the big states. Yes, New York, California, Florida, Texas, the very largely populated states. Yes, they have a lot to say because they have a larger population. But is it really fair for what they need and want for smaller states like Nevada or Wyoming or Montana or some of these smaller states that are in different parts of the country to have to do the exact same thing. That doesn't really seem fair, right? You have different population, different people, different weather, different needs, different views and stuff. So it could work, but everyone would have to be equal. If you do it based on population, then those smaller states get steamrolled and don't have a voice. So this is why we have a bit of both. We have based on representation, so the bigger states, based on populations, the bigger states have a little bit more say. But then we also have that everyone is the same in the Senate so that those small states can come to the table and have an equal vote. So we have a little bit of both in the bicameral. Give me a thumbs up when you have both those, and then we'll do the checking for understanding. All right, so I'm going to jump back over into Canvas. Okay, we're going to scroll down. So strengths and weaknesses of the article, like I said, there are some good things. There were some treaties that came from it, kind of a clear direction, but there were a lot of issues straight off the bat with these 13 states and the Articles of Confederation just kind of letting them do what they wanted to do. The Articles of Confederation was created primarily in order to, and that was create a new government that would deal with such issues such as managing war. So kind of create this new government. After we broke away from Britain and said, we're done, we're going to do our own thing, you actually have to do your own thing. So the Articles of Confederation was that founding document to try to lay the framework for this new type of republic. One of the major debates that took place during the writing of the Articles of Confederation was, and that's going to be how representation between states would be determined. This was the big thing because, again, population differences. How do you make sure that states that have more population are heard? Because if you have more population, yeah, it makes sense. And when you're talking about equality, it depends how you define it, right? If I define equality as majority rule, right, the biggest group, their needs should be heard. It's stuff, that's one way to interpret it. Or does every state, despite population, get the same say? So it really depends on how you define equality, right? And that's why sometimes even in today's standpoint, when we talk about equality or equity or things like that, it can be debated how that's interpreted or how you meet that, right? Depending on how you view it. Small states, they're going to feel like that's unfair, right? They're gonna be like, wait, you're bigger than me. You're always bigger than me. So you're always going to win. I'm going to get steamrolled every time. But if you're a big state, you're like, well, yeah, but I have more people. We have more problems. So we should have a bigger say. So it kind of becomes, you don't want the small state to always get steamrolled, but you also can't have the big state having everything they want and everybody else just has to go along because that's what they want, you know? So it's both have an argument. And that's part of the reason we established in the second constitution, our constitution, legislative based on population and Senate based on everyone is the same. Because both have a point. Some of the key powers of Congress under the Articles of Confederation include, and that was going to be the ability to declare war, peace, and peace treaties, foreign diplomacy. Okay, so the federal government was empowered in the Articles of Confederation to negotiate on behalf of the states. A key problem experienced in the Articles of Confederation was Congress had to rely on sometimes unwilling states for tax revenue. So the federal government has to pay for things. They have to pay back debt from the American Revolution. They have to pay for roads. They got to pay for different things, yet there's no income. So let's say 10 states pay it, but 3 hold out. You're like, you 3 need to pay. They're like, make me. The Congress had no army, so they had no way to make those 3 states pay. Well, what do you think is going to happen when that gets around to the other 10 states? They're going to be like, I paid and they don't have to pay. The next time I'm not going to pay, right? It de-incentivizes doing, quote, the right thing and when there's no consequence. And then a success under the Articles of Confederation was, so there wasn't a total fail, the Northwest Ordinance, which allowed for more states to be added and banned slavery in the Northwest Territory. So from the beginning, slavery was a debated topic. Okay, slavery was definitely a debated topic that, again, not all the states agreed on. Northern states who were less dependent on slavery were quicker to condemn it, therefore outlaw it. The southern states where the plantations were very common, so the economy was wrapped up more in slavery, there was a lot more resistance and stuff. So one of the things of the ability to add more states, that's good so that the country could grow, but also to try to tackle and start to ban and tackle the topic of slavery. Unfortunately, it took another 100 years, right? It took until the 1860s and stuff in the Civil War for it to actually, be banned federally across all states. But a lot of northern states early on were trying to ban slavery and tackle this topic. The southern states were a lot more resistant. And a lot of that had to do with, again, economics. The more dependent you are on something, the more likely you are to resist change. If you're not dependent on something, then it doesn't impact you as much. It's easier to gain support. And so that's a very basic explanation, though, but an oversimplification, but explanation of that. And we'll get more into that as we get into amendments and when it came to specific amendments. Okay. Now we're going to go to the next part. We're going to go to U.S. Constitution. All right. And so this is going to be after the Articles of Confederation failed, they had to rewrite the Constitution. Within the first 10 years, they quickly became clear they're going to have to rewrite the Constitution. So we're going to go to the Constitution tab. Okay. Democracy, federalism, how they established the three branches, types of power. All right. So let's take a look at the questions. How does the U.S. Constitution lay out new relationships between the state and a more powerful central government? So the government was further established under the concept of federalism, so that the states have power, but it all needs to center around, when you hear the term federalism, it just means you're pro-federal government or centralized government. So it's the principle that the national government shares sovereign power with the states. Okay, both state and federal are going to govern concurrently, which means at the same time, but federal law will supersede states. So that means that if the states have a law that contradicts the federal law will overstep that. So let's say, for example, I'll take a one that's been really big in the last 10 years, marijuana. Okay, so originally, right, it was not legal in any state, and federally, it's illegal. Slowly but surely, right, we've seen a lot of states make it legal. So here's where it's really sticky, right? Here's the sticky situation. So a bunch of states, over half, have legalized marijuana. So you can legally do marijuana at, is it 18 or 21? I don't know. I don't do anything with marijuana or something like that, but that you can legally do it, right, at the same age like you can drink or smoke under certain guidelines, right? But technically, it is still federally against the law. So technically speaking, if a federal agency caught you with marijuana, you could get in trouble because federal law actually supersedes state law. Now, that doesn't happen a whole lot because there's a pretty wide acceptance for the legalization of marijuana, but that is technically where federal law does supersede state law. Interesting, huh? Nobody else thinks that's interesting? Like, okay. You guys asleep today? Give me some proof of life. Give me an emoji, something. Anything. You can cry, whatever you need to do. Some proof of life. Okay, we're crying. All right, I'm sorry crying. I know, I amaze myself. So. All right, some proof of life, right? Okay, so this new government, all right, under Constitution, the separation of powers principle into three different branches. So this is, again, the framework of our government today, that there would be the executive branch, the president, there would be the judicial, which is Supreme Court, and there would be the legislative, which is going to be the House and the Senate. And we're going to go into all those in more detail as we go through the quarter or through the semester. Also, that there were three types of power that the federal government would have: expressed, implied, and inherent power. All right, and we'll get into those more as the semester goes on. So this is number 6. Okay, it cut off B. So let me get the rest of that. Let me grab it. While you copy and paste this over into your notebook, let's take a look at this page. Okay, so the U.S. Constitution, they came together in 1787 at the Constitutional Convention. So originally it was like, maybe we can just modify the Articles of Confederation, but they quickly realized that they were just going to have to start over because they couldn't get all 13 states to agree on anything. Hence back to the original problem of the Articles of Confederation, okay? And then became the debate of federalism. How much power should this federal government have, and how do we make sure that this new federal government doesn't overstep and crush the states? Yes, they need to be in charge, but there have to be limits on that so they're not just crushing the states' rights, that states have some autonomy. And so they did this to try to balance that power through the idea of three branches of government, okay? That there would just be one branch, that the president, the executive branch, the legislative, which was the state representatives, the House and the Senate, and then the judicial branch, which is the Supreme Court. All three of these were equal to one another, checks and balance. So they all have different power, and then they have to make, then they are accountable to the other branches. So it's a trifecta. And if one tries to get too powerful, then the other can kind of come and smash them down and say, no, 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 no. So for example, when the president oversteps, the Supreme Court can strike that down and say, no, you're going too far. You're violating the constitutional law. The legislative branch, the president comes up with the budget, the legislative branch approves the budget. That way the president doesn't just have a blank check, you know, and can do whatever they want. Again, so there's checks and balances to make sure that no one person or group is making all the decisions. The legislative branch is actually the House and the Senate are the ones who make laws. The president can suggest and support and veto, but actually has no power to make federal law. So again, these checks and balances are really, really important. Okay, so let's do this checking for understanding. Okay, how does the Constitution balance between small and large states with regard to legislative power? So remember, this is back to larger states should have a bigger say and that they have more people, more problems, but we also have to make sure the smaller states aren't being steamrolled. So how do we solve that? And that was the bicameral nature of it, that we have the House, which is based on population. So the more population, the more representatives. And then we have the Senate. So bicameral means two houses. And the Senate is based on everyone is the same. So I don't care if you're Wyoming or California, right? You get two representatives, two state senators. In order to determine how members of the House of Representatives of each state would be based on population, it was decided enslaved people. So again, slavery was legal at the time of the writing of the Constitution. So the question became, how are slaves going to be counted into population? Because if it's based on population, then how are we defining a person? Okay, so originally they counted slaves as 3/5 a person. Okay, so they did not have voting power, but they counted toward the population as 3/5 a person. Now, this was amended during the Civil War and the 13th, 14th, 15th amendments, you know, ending slavery and then redefining who is a citizen of this country. But originally, that was how they categorized. The Constitution gave the federal government which of the following powers that it did not have under the Articles of Confederation. So what does the new Constitution and federal government, how do they have more power than the old Constitution? Okay. And that was basically federal law precedes over conflicting state law. So technically speaking, back to my example of marijuana, technically it is federally illegal to do marijuana. So even though it's allowed within many states and stuff like that, if technically you got in trouble and you were somehow interacted with federal agencies, even though legally within your state you weren't breaking the law, the federal government could bring charges against you. So federal law supersedes state law when there's a conflict. The Constitution grants the federal government three types of power. Okay, so that is expressed, implied, and inherent. Okay, we see it right here. Implied, inherent, and then expressed is right here. All right, and then our last question. From this excerpt referencing article about the separation of power, the division of power into branches, it is critical for the existence and proper functions of this other core system in U.S. government. And that's going to be checks and balances. So the whole goal of creating three branches of government was to create a checks and balance, a fence on federalism, on the federal government from becoming too powerful, from the president becoming a dictator, from the legislative just going wild, from the courts just changing laws whenever they want. It creates a checks and balance so that no one group or person or party has all the power. And if they do get out of line, then you have the other two to bring them back down. Now remember, you can always redo these or retry and stuff if you're reviewing for your quiz. Okay? So we finished this section. So let's take a look at our notebook and we're going to go to the primary source next. We're going to go to the primary source test. So we're going to scroll down to the bottom of the page. We're going to go to next. and we're take a look at our primary source. This is the last thing we're going to do together, and then I'm going to give you time. This will take us about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to give you time to work on the journal and critical thinking question, and then I also will give you your notes for the quiz. So I'll give you some time to finish this up in class if you want. Give me a thumbs up. You're on the primary source page. You're ready to do number 7. Okay, awesome. So the primary source, just like we went over last time, is a chart. Okay, so you fill out a chart. This time it's the Declaration of Independence. So last week we did the Magna Carta, right, which was the OG of constitutions, all right, and we went through that. This week we're doing Declaration of Independence. This is actually going to make it pretty easy because we did the Declaration of Independence last week, right? We did that worksheet. So a lot of the same kind of things we pulled from the worksheet we'll be able to reuse. So this actually should go a little bit faster than our normal documents because we already actually looked and analyzed this document last week. All right, so the first thing we have to do is we need to give the title or description. All right, so easy enough. The Declaration of Independence, it was written in 1776 and listed the main authors. All right, so here we go. This is number 7. The Declaration in Britain, primarily Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston. And then others contributed. Thomas Jefferson probably gets the most credit because he actually penned it, but you had dozens of people sign it saying they agreed, committing treason, right? Because this was a breakup letter that really was, you were breaking away from a government. That is treason. If you were unsuccessful, if you're successful, yay, you're hailed a hero, right? You're setting up a new government. If you fail, you go down in history as a tyrant and that you were disloyal, right? For treason and put to death. So very different paths. History is all about the winners, right? History is written by the winners and their perspective. So we hail the Declaration of Independence because they were successful. If they hadn't been successful, we would be looking at it from the British point of view, right? And we would be saying, idiots, what were they thinking? You know, it's amazing how the story can change based on who is writing it. Okay, so next thing it asks us is concept. Okay, so concept, so what is the point of this? Okay, it's a grievance letter to Great Britain and officially breaking ties with them to establish a new government. And we see that in the very first part of the document, right? When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for people to dissolve the political bands which have connected with them and to assume among the power of earth the separation and equal station, they go on and on. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That is to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So they're calling out that governments are there to uphold those rights. And then therefore going down and claiming, right, that the King of England, King George, violated that. And then they give the long list of violations. And we say, we therefore, representatives of the United States of America in general, appealing to the supreme judge of the world, okay, basically say we are breaking away. We're done. You can't tell me what to do anymore. You're not my parent. I am independent. I'm in charge of me, myself, and I. And then signed by all these different people. Okay. Okay. So unique feature details the list of violations and grievances from King George and the British Parliament. And this is a big deal because think about it. Any of you got a little bit of fear of your parents? Like healthy fear. You know what I mean? Like you might tell them what you're thinking, but you tell them the G-rated version, not the R-rated version, right? I still have a little bit of fear of my mom. Like I love my mom. My mom is so awesome. But like if I'm upset with her, I have to like tone it down. Yes, exactly. It's fearful respect, right? It's respect. It's not like you're afraid like they're going to beat you. It's just, you know what I mean? But there's a little fear. My mom has the look, right? And then I have the look. Like you want them to be honest with you, but you do it in a very respectful way. You're like, so I wasn't a big fan when you did that. I understand why you did it. It would just be nice, right? When really what you want to say is, that was messed up and you shouldn't have done that. I don't like that, right? So this was saying like, peace out. Like, I don't like you. We're done. I mean, to list the grievances of the king. Who goes to the king and says they're wrong? No one who wants to keep their head. So it's even more like, what a big deal to send a breakup letter, but then to personally address it to the king and say, you did this, you did this, you did this. I'd be stepping back going, do we have to be so blunt? Could we say it a little nicer? Like, he's going to be really mad. I mean, he's going to be mad no matter what, but like, ooh, that hurt. Like, did you have to be so brutal? Oh, they were brutal. Oh, they were brutal. All right. And I think sometimes if we think about it like that, it makes it more relatable and easier to really get through some of the tough verbiage. Okay. He obstructed this. He endowed our rights. He kept us among peace times without consent from legislatives. You know, he cut off our taxes. He imposed taxes. You know, no trial by jury. You know, on and on. Ban trade. I mean, just went on and on and on. Like, how do you really feel? Okay, so new vocab word. Usurpation. This was one I hadn't heard. I even had to review it there for a second. I was like, okay, usurpation? Yeah, damage control. There's no damage control on this one. Yeah, it's like, it just vomit of the mouth and now run. All right, so for new vocab word, usurpation means illegal encroachment or like infringement or seizure. So they're accusing the king of acting illegally on their rights, on trade, on resources, on taxes. So it's used in different ways, but it's a way of saying that you seizure, not like seizure, like having a seizure, like seizure means to seize, to take. Infringement means to violate, this was the code, you broke it. Dishonest. How dare you? All right. So what is this about? So again, I told you it's good to kind of break it up. So the first paragraph, it's declaring the intent. It's outlining the natural right. So it's declaring the intent. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that we are going to break up with you, So I like to, when I'm doing the what is it, I kind of like to break the document up into sections and summarize. So first part is very much, when in the course of human events, it's saying sometimes we got to break up, separate. Okay. We have these truths, life, liberty, these unalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Okay. So breaking up, and because you violated my rights. So kind of an overview, right? Then we get to the next section. Okay. The main body, and it's due to repeated offenses, violations, British colonizers, and then a long detailed list of those offenses and violations, such as, so it's listing, those violations and why they're breaking up with them. So this is that second, what is this about? So it's getting more detailed. It's like, okay, yeah, I just broke up with you. Now let me tell you why. In the future, when you're going to break up with someone, just say, we're done. It didn't work, da-da-da, especially if they have a temper, and leave. Okay. Getting into the list, they're probably not going to take it well. It only makes a bad situation worse. Might feel good to tell them how you feel, but it usually makes a bad situation worse. Breakups are never easy. So I've been through one or two myself. It's not you, it's me. Yeah, if you really wanted to go smooth, that makes them mad, but that way you just like, it's not you, it's me, I gotta go. And get out. Breakups are never easy. They're messy. They're very messy. Okay. What is this about? All right. So the declaration. So this is the last part. Okay. So the Declaration of Separation, authority of the colonies over themselves, and the ability to govern and wage war. So saying all the things that you've had, which is the ability to govern us and wage war, we now take that away. Then they send you a 6-paragraph essay and how, yeah. Right? And then just don't respond. Honestly, like if you really want it to be done, just don't engage. They're going to try to get you to engage. Don't engage. I can tell you, it just makes a bad situation worse. I've been through a couple breakups before. That's all right. I went through a couple breakups, one big one. And yes, that's what I mean. They haunt you. I know, but breakups are hard. So sometimes it's just, like you got to create that separation. They come back 5 years later. That happened to me a year. So I was with a guy for 3 years. I'll tell you guys sometime about, I had like this one relationship in college. So I didn't date in high school. I came from like a really, really strict family. And then I dated this guy for my freshman through junior year. We broke up and stuff. And he took it hard, really hard. He ended up failing his classes and had to drop out for a year. Yeah. Evidently I'm hard to get over. What can I say? So I gave him a lot of chances, but he didn't. I wasn't trying to be mean. I wasn't trying to be mean. Leo energy. Yeah, it is. I guess so. So, well, he went crazy on me. Okay. This is a guy. Okay. Just a side for that. This is a guy that literally like never cried. Like I never saw any emotion from him. We broke up like a couple times, got back together. You know what I mean? And then finally I was done, right? Like when it was like done, all of a sudden he like fell apart, showed up at my door, like in the middle of the night, like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, like bawling and crying. And I felt really bad, but then he like got really creepy on me and he started like stalking. So yeah, it was a little creepy at one point. I was like, eh. So yeah, it's, yeah. Yeah, you just have to kind of move on. I was just like, you gotta leave me alone. And so then I ran into him a year later and he tried to do that whole, I miss you, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm good. Nice to see you. Wish you well. I'm good. So, and his new partner, she was interesting. So we'll just put it that way. All right. I'm done. All right. Bring it all together. All right. Yeah. Breakups are not easy, especially the longer you're together, the rougher it is. So bring it all together. This is a big summary of that. All right. So this is a breakup letter after years of having their rights on the rights as British citizens compromised environment and violated after repeated petition. So they tried to change this. They tried just like I did. I didn't want to break up. I tried to say, hey, let's fix this. I'll give you an opportunity. And they just don't. Sometimes people just don't listen. I tried for 6 months. I tried, fix this, It was always me. I was like, okay, then you got to go your separate ways. So yes, go ahead.
I think I relate to you a lot because, like, I'm the same way. Like, it's like once you try to be like caring and loving, and you pour so much energy into a person, and then when you become, and then eventually it becomes boring for you because you realize how much it's draining you, and then eventually you become nonchalant, and then you eventually just stop caring. So once you like separate yourself from that person, they trying to come back, your feelings sort of just drop. So it's sort of like, I don't care about you no more.
I agree. Yep, I agree. So exactly. You gotta just, when you try, I'm telling you, when the person breaks up you and they're not crying, that's the sign that it's really done. And I'm a crier, totally a crier and stuff. So when I'm crying, like there's hope. If I stop crying, then it's like, oh, the heart has ice into, right? I think a lot of people feel that way. Like you have emotion because you're trying to fix it. You want it to work. So once you're done, you're done. All right. And these colonists, we're done. Yes, that's right. Our birthdays, I think we're both Leos, right? Yep. We're done. Okay. So as promised, I'll start wrapping this up. Y'all are great. This makes it fun. All right. People watching this back are going to be like, they can't see the chat. So they're going to be like, what the heck's going on? We're all agreeing that we are empathizing with the colonists, that sometimes when in the course of human events, it becomes evident that sometimes you just got to break up. There is no work making it work. Sometimes you're just done. Okay. So you are going to do the last 2 sections on your own. I know, but I've done all the rest with you. So I think this is fair. Okay. So we have the journal and the journal part 8, which I'm fine with 1 paragraph. So to me, 1 paragraph is 5 good sentences. And this is worth like 20 points. So make sure you actually do 5 good sentences. All right. Because I will dock you. All right. Especially when I do it with you, I am not very forgiving then when it comes to the few parts you have to do on your own when people slack. Okay. I'm not letting it slide. And then, so you're going to have to answer the essential question is, how is the Declaration of Independence relevant in today's government? So think about it in that same way, protests. We have the right to protest. We have the right to a trial by jury. If taxes are going to be changed, they have to be voted on. There's a lot of things today. It's a song reference. Yes. I think that, there's a lot of things we can pull from today that they outline in the Declaration of Independence, that the government is not above the law. We see former President Trump in some hot water right now. And we also see current President Biden in some hot water, the whole laptop, right? And stuff with the sun. Both of them, they're getting their and I'm not taking sides, but I think we can all agree there's some shady business on both of them. Both of them are facing some shady business. They are not above the law. Just because you're president, just because you're in a place of power does not mean you get to break the law. And that's what the Declaration is kind of putting here, that all men are created equal and must consent to that government. All right. And then are accountable to that. So we'll see how things play out. We got quite a few people in hot water right now in places of government. Number 9, think about what you already know about the answer to the supporting question. All right. So you're going to find this. So here's the journal part. Okay. Summarizes and then that key question that you need to answer. There's a quick vocab review. So it's going back to number 2. So you literally just match it. And again, sometimes there's questions on the quiz on the vocab. So this is a good review. All right. I'm going to let you do that on your own. You answer that final question and then you submit it. Okay. It's worth 88 points. So you can see what each section's worth, but those last 2 sections, 30 points. So a third of the points right there. Okay. Primary sources were 20. We did that together. These last 2 sections, make sure you do a paragraph and answer it to the best of your ability. Okay. Before I let you go, I'm going to give you free time to work. All right. Then what you're going to do is after you submit this on Friday or on Monday, then you're going to take your quiz. Okay. Now the quiz, I have the notebook, the notes for the quiz linked on that lesson and review page, but I'm also going to give them to you directly right now. Oops, that's the notebook, wrong link, sorry. Here we go. Okay. Go ahead and let me know that this opens for you. Here are the review notes. Now remember, you can use these on the quiz. You can print them off. You can use them as a tab on a separate device. You may use these on your quiz. So let me repeat that. You may use these notes on your quiz. So somebody let me know if this opens. Click on the link. Let me know this opens. And then you can save this to your drive. So you can go back and find it when you want to do your review. It opened? Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So just really quick, it gives you those vocab words. If you want to put definitions, you can do that. You can modify this. You can add to this if you want. You just make a copy. Make a copy. And then you can save it to your drive. Okay, gives you key things, about kind of pulled from each page. Okay, the key enlightened thinkers. I've taken some of those review questions and put them here so you can review them. Articles of Confederation, what was success and failures of it? So all these are failures. There's the success. Okay, other key questions from the reviews. Make sure you review the Declaration of Independence. Okay. And then again, doing those checking for understandings. Okay. And I've taken those checking from understanding questions and I've put some of them in here as well. All right. So this isn't everything. This is just an overview. So you're welcome to add to it, but you can use it on your quiz. All right. We have about 25 minutes left. And so in those 25 minutes, you can definitely get those last 2 parts of the notebook done. All right. If you miss class on Tuesday, then you could go back and work on the first part of the notebook, okay, which I go over in the video. So we're going to hang out because of attendance. All right, we're in here till 1:40, but you need to do 8 and 9. So my suggestion, get it done, and that way you're done, and all you have to do is take your quiz. All right. A reminder that Friday, small group, I am available from 9 to 11:15, and those codes are on the Google Meet page on the homepage, right? So if you have any questions, it's optional. You don't have to do it. It's optional. You come in and you can ask any questions. So things to remember for Friday: get your work done. Module 1, lesson 2, the notebook and the quiz. They're technically due Monday. I would just try to get them done by Friday. Just get them done. All right. And then make sure you're filling out that attendance assignment on Friday and Monday. All right. Because the next time we'll meet is next Tuesday. So it is a little bit of a gap. All right. So you got about 24 minutes. Keep working. If you have questions, I'm here to help you. Get that 8 and 9 done on your notebook. And then make sure you have that review sheet. You can also find it on the lesson and recording page. That same notes are there. So if you lose the link, that's where you can always find the weekly note sheet, okay, which you can use on the quiz. Remember, you get 2 attempts on the quiz, only 2, all right? So make it count, all right? So 2, and you may use the notes, all right? But 2 is the limit. Okay, let me know if you have any questions.